Number 1. The Feltonville Kidnapping. Around 4:30 a.m. on June 3, 2012, a 9-year-old girl in Feltonville, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, awoke to a naked man wearing a green mask touching her leg. The man then grabbed the girl, and she screamed. Her father heard the scream, but assumed that the girl or one of her siblings who she shared the room with was just having a nightmare. By the time he got up to investigate, he heard the front door close and discovered that the girl was gone. He called the police, and by 6:30 a.m., the police and even the local media were at the girl's house. Miraculously, that is when the girl came running down the street screaming "Daddy," and she was reunited with her family on the front porch of her house. She was taken to the hospital, where she told them that she had been sexually assaulted in an alley near her house and then taken to a playground, where the man threatened to kill her whole family if she told anyone about the assault. He then let her go, and she found her way home. The police only had 2 clues for the atrocious crime against the unidentified girl. The first is a surveillance footage from a pizza place at the end of the house's road. Unfortunately, the camera was too far away to show specific details about the kidnapper, but it did provide a few clues. The man entered the house through an unlocked front door at 3:50 a.m. He stayed in the house for next 40 minutes. At some point, he entered the room that the girl shared with her sister and stepsister. The man only fled with the girl after she screamed. These actions have led the police to speculate that the man knew the family, because he seemed comfortable enough to spend that much time in the house, and he knew to target it. Also, police think that he was wearing a mask to hide his identity, which means that the girl or her family might have been able to recognize him had they seen his face. Police were also able to get DNA evidence, and they tested it against men that the family knew, but no match for the DNA has ever been found. Number 2. Brendan Vollmost. Brendan Vollmost went missing after he had his car smashed into, was chased, assaulted and then kidnapped by up to 4 men in South Windsor, west of Sydney on March 31. Vollmost has not been seen since, and police believe that he was murdered. His body has never been recovered. Perhaps the most chilling part of the case was a CCTV footage released by the police. The horrifying CCTV footage may have captured the final desperate moments of Vollmost's life. The footage shows the 23-year-old and 2 friends in a car, pulling into his driveway at Cox Street, South Windsor, at about 10:30 p.m. on March 31. The car is still moving when Vollmost opens the door and jumps out. He and the driver run from the car, leaving the third person inside the vehicle. He frantically tries to scramble over the fence before it swings open and he and the driver run into the yard. At almost the same time, a white Hyundai i30 arrives. Several men jump out of the car and race up to the driveway, pursuing Vollmost into the yard. Police believe Vollmost was bashed to death in his back shed, while his girlfriend was inside the house they shared, and that the men carried Vollmost out of the yard, bundled him into their car and drove away. Previous reports suggested that the crime may be connected to drugs, and Vollmost might have been involved in a collision with the Hyundai just before he was abducted. Blood found in property shed suggested he had been seriously injured before being taken away. Detectives are still searching for Vollmost's body and the Hyundai, but suspect the car is still in the western suburbs, because it hasn't been detected crossing any of the toll points on the major highways out of the Hawkesbury. Vollmost, who was on 2-year good behavior bond for drug possession and driving offenses, was traveling with friends at the time his vehicle was struck. Police are working with Brendan's passengers to better understand why Brendan was targeted. The footage led to arrest of 4 men who, based on the evidence collected by the police, have been charged by Brendan's murder. Police have confirmed the 4 men, 3 aged 25 and 1 aged 33, are a part of a group calling themselves the Blood Brothers, and the death was likely a result of drug trafficking. However, Brendan's remains have never been found, and the men refuse to give any information about him. Brendan and the car still remains missing. Number 3. Kayla Kaling. 30-year-old Kayla Kaling had led a relatively normal life until September of 2014. She had been a social worker at a boys' school, but had recently been let go. She lived in a Murray, Salt Lake City, Utah condo with a friend and her beloved dog, who she scarcely left home without. On the night of September 26, 2014, Kaylin began to act strangely. She placed an anxious call to 911, claiming there was a fight outside her condo which involved firearms.
I did hear a fight, but it was very real.
Were weapons involved or mentioned?
Yes.
Yes? What kind of weapons?
Guns.
Police arrived and found no fight, only a peaceful wedding reception next door. The next day, Kaylin called 911 once more. She was convinced that someone had broken into her apartment. She claimed she believed there was more than one intruder, as she had heard someone say something akin to, "Check in there."
They're stealing in my house. Get the out of my house. Shut up.
Okay, do you know who this person is?
No, I don't. I just know that there's an intruder in my house.
You don't know who they are.
No, I don't.
Were weapons involved or mentioned?
They're not talking or responding. I just told them to leave so I can hear them taking things.
So you haven't seen them, you can just hear them?
Yes, correct.
While on the phone, Kaylin's friend had awoken and walked in trying to calm her, assuring her that their door was locked and there was no one in the house.
Don't do that, Sam. If the door's still locked, it's impossible. They must have a key or something. Why is the door still locked? Well, I can't explain that, but I heard like two people talking.
Kaylin eventually calmed, but later that evening she walked out of her home into the rain outside, barefoot and with none of her possessions, and was never seen alive again. Over 9 weeks later, Kaylin's body was found in Jordan River, about 6 miles from her condo. A coroner could not establish the definite cause of death, and labeled then undetermined due to water exposure. There are also 2 surveillance videos from Lauder's condominium complex that capture her. One recorded her outside her condo at 3:30 p.m. on 27 September, apparently having an animated conversation with herself, according to the police. But to me, she just seems to be talking to her dog. The second was 5:45 p.m., showing her walking out of her residence barefoot and wearing a tank top. Police say that was the last known location of Lauder. She left her cell phone and keys behind, and her beloved family dog. Investigators fear she may be delusional. Family members say Lauder does not have any diagnosed mental illness, and they were unaware of any medications she might have been taking. Whether she simply walked away, was planning on meeting someone, got a ride, or exactly what happened to her is unknown. Family members say Lauder was kind of a quirky cousin, who was very social in talking to everyone, even her dog. But she was also a homebody who loved to watch movies or play board games. The day she went missing, the family believed she had plans to stay home and update her resume. Regardless, police did not believe that foul play was involved. It seemed to most that Kaylin had suffered a psychotic break that led to her death. However, she had never shown signs of mental illness before, and how she walked 6 miles barefoot and wearing clothes obviously unfit for the weather without being seen remains unclear. Number 4. Emma Flipoff. Emma Flipoff had always been a free spirit. The 26-year-old had set off to live on her own in Victoria, Vancouver, after becoming depressed and stressed by her parents' divorce. She worked at a seaside restaurant and spent a lot of her time writing poetry. But in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she began to struggle with her new life. She journaled about her loneliness and expressed unease that someone might be stalking her. She had to stay at a women's shelter several times, and finally on November 26, 2012, she called her mother and begged her to come home. Emma's mother made plans to fly out to Victoria to get her immediately. On November 28th, Emma went into 7-Eleven and brought a prepaid cell phone. Surveillance video indicated that she seemed anxious to return outside, as if avoiding someone. She then tried to take a taxi to an airport, but was ejected after not having adequate fare. She returned to the women's shelter for a time, then went back to the 7-Eleven and brought a prepaid credit card. She was last seen between the times of 7:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. in front of the Empress Hotel. According to a witness, Dennis Quaid, an acquaintance of Flipoff, said Emma seemed confused. He saw her at a zebra crossing, refusing to cross the street. Quaid asked her if she was feeling okay and asked her if she was being followed due to her paranoid mannerism. Flipoff said she was okay. So not knowing what to do, he entered a nearby restaurant and made a phone call to the police, claiming there was a dazed and distressed woman pacing in front of the Empress Hotel. He assumed the police would pick her up, however they didn't. Police showed up and found her shoeless. They questioned her for a total of 45 minutes, asking if she felt suicidal or homicidal. She answered no to both questions and said she was going through some things and was taking a walk before going to stay with her friend. Apparently convinced Emma was alright and having no reason to take her, they left her at about 7:45 p.m. That was the last time Emma was ever seen. A CCTV footage that investigators found was a clip from a local YMCA 5 days before Emma went missing. In the clip, she walks in and out through the door 6 times, peering out through the glass. Her cell phone was never activated, and her credit card was found by an alcoholic man who used it to buy cigarettes and could not remember where he found it. The rest of Emma's possessions were found locked in her van, indicating she did not run away. Her mother arrived in Victoria just 3 hours after Emma had been last seen. Though a search began and reward was offered, nothing could be found of Emma. In May of 2014, a man walked into Gastown, Vancouver convenience store and ripped a poster of Emma off the wall, crumpling it. When the concerned employees questioned him, the creepy man reportedly said, "It's one of those missing persons poster, except she's not missing. She's my girlfriend and she ran away, cause she hates her parents." The man was caught on CCTV and police were called, but he has yet to be identified, and it is unknown if he actually knows Emma. Number 5. Yukari Yokoyama. One of the most infamous cases from Japan was the Yukari Yokoyama missing persons incident of 1996. Yukari was a 4-year-old girl whose parents Yasuo and Mitsuko took her and her baby sister to pachinko parlor on July 7, 1996 in Gunma Prefecture's Ota City. Pachinko is a pinball-like arcade game that's been popular in Japan since the early 1950s. Like pinball, you try to shoot little balls into one of the holes in the machine. You win every ball that lands in a hole, and you exchange these balls for prizes. While the Yokoyama split up, with Mitsuko taking their baby daughter and Yasuo going out to play at a machine in different row, Yukari was left free to roam around and play in the parlor. Around noon time, Mitsuko bought some lunch and took the kids outside to the car to eat. Yukari wasn't very hungry during the time, but decided that she wanted to eat some more after her mother started to play pachinko again. Mitsuko then sent her daughter off with a snack to eat on a nearby couch, where she could keep an eye on her. Sometime after 1:40 p.m., Yukari came back to her mother and said something about an uncle. Mitsuko couldn't hear very well over the sounds of pachinko machines, and Yukari went back over to the couch unheard. 10 minutes later, Mitsuko looked up from her game and noticed that Yukari wasn't sitting on the couch anymore. When she got up to check where Yukari was sitting, She found the girl's juice and half-eaten onigiri. Mitsuko then told her husband that Yukari was gone. After searching the parlor's parking lot, the Yokoyamas reported Yukari missing to the nearby police station around 2:10 p.m. While the police searched the area over the next 2 days, interviewing customers and other people who were on the parlor that day, one witness reported seeing a little girl around Yukari's age getting into a white car around the time of her disappearance. There were other people who remembered seeing Yukari in the parlor, but nobody paid any attention to her, and nobody could say whether they saw anybody particularly suspicious either. A big breakthrough in the case came when the authorities reviewed footage from the parlor's security cameras. At 1:27 p.m., a man about 5 feet 2 inches came into the parlor and went into the bathroom located in the back of the building. The man, whose most distinguishing features were some sunglasses, sandals and a hat, came out 3 minutes later and began to wander the parlor. At 1:33 p.m., while Yukari was sitting on the couch, the man came over and sat next to her. He smoked and talked to Yukari, pointing his finger to the entrance a few times until he got up and left the building at 1:42 p.m. Yukari then went over to her mother and mentioned something about uncle. After her mother paid no attention, Yukari walked over to the entrance and left the building, after which the security cameras lost sight of her. Although the surveillance footage from the parlor was widely shown in the media and the shady man's image was included on flyers, Yukari's abductor has never been identified. Some believe the man might have been a prior customer, or was at least familiar with the parlor's layout. As of May 2017, this case has remained completely cold. If Yukari Yokoyama is still alive today, she would be around 22 or 23.